I think diversity is very important. And
Yeah.
by diversity, I don't mean this group over the other. I
Yes.
mean all of us getting together and being able to contribute towards coming up with the solutions
Yeah.
is really important. Like we need to all get together and say, this is what we see.
Welcome to another episode of Discover Talent at Vico.net. Today I am with Nomcebo Ngwamba. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Mm-hmm. You're a lead data engineer.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I've always been intrigued that we've got so many different types of engineering, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't get to hear about others. There's normally your traditional ones, electrical engineer, civil engineer, but a lead data engineer. What do you do?
I'm sure you've heard that data is the new oil. A lot of people talk about it, but what does it really mean? It means that data is as valuable right now as oil. And for us to be able to get value out of this data, it has to be cleaned. It has to go through a process of refinement and polishing and processing until it gets to a point where businesses use it for insights.
Yeah.
So the data engineer has a role to play in that whole ecosystem by ensuring that they refine this data to ensure that businesses get value out of this oil that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the role of a data engineer really is making sure that data is cleaned up and refined so that data scientists can make use of it to help businesses get insights from the data that has been collected.
Okay. So you come in, if I was to call it a production line, so the data engineers come in a lot earlier.
Yes.
Before your data scientists.
Correct.
Who need to derive insights out of it. And your business analysts, do they come after you? Or what is the difference between the data engineer and analyst? I'm sure there's some level of analysis that happens.
Yeah, that's correct. So the business analyst is usually the middleman between us and the client or the person who comes with the story. The person who comes and says, I need you to help me understand this about my business.
Yeah.
So the business analyst will be able to translate those business requirements to technical deliverables.
Yeah.
If a user says, I need you to help me with 1, 2, 3, what does it mean from a technical perspective? That is the role that is played by the business analyst to try and translate whatever requirement comes through for us technical people to understand and to also be able to bridge the gap between the business person and the technical person because they ease the gap.
Yes.
So that's why we need business analysts to help us. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm trying to wrap this in my head, right, as a data engineer. So how does it work? Is it just data, millions and millions of data, and structured, unstructured? And do you get a brief before then in terms of what you're looking for, or you just going wild and, try and make sense of this and put it, obviously in the context of your organization and what you do, right? And try and package this in a way that it could be useful for others. I'm sure there's a process of some sort.
You're correct. There is a process. So it comes in different forms. It comes as a question sometimes.
Okay.
And in some instances, it comes as a story. This is what's happening. Can we use data to help answer or get a response to this question that we have as a business?
Yeah.
Then it's a series of conversations back and forth, understanding the problem, because we work across multiple industries. I've been in healthcare, finance, e-commerce, broadcasting, different sectors. But you need to first understand the business to be able to respond to the question that you have. I mean, it's one thing to have the data. You need to also go over and above and understand. I mean, if I find something odd, and I'm someone who's used to a different space, and I'm, for example, in healthcare, how do I interpret results from a test, for example? If it's odd, can I tell that this is an odd number? So it's a series of conversations followed by a series of learnings, because you also need to understand the business better, be part of the business to help the business get answers to the problems they have. So it's a long process of engagement and querying the data. By querying, it's just assessing and seeing what we have and what we can work with, and whether the question they came with can be answered with what we have. Sometimes it means going out and getting more data, or getting more data sources and putting everything together really to get to a point where we say, okay, this is our understanding of the data, this is our understanding of the problem you have. And based on this, we can be able to provide 1, 2, 3. For this to happen, maybe for 4 to happen, we need more data, which will sometimes you'll find that the client has, but they're not aware that it's valuable for the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah. And typically, what are your data sources? Where do you, when you say you're analyzing data, you're sourcing data and so forth, where are you finding it?
Different industries have different storage environments. Some, it's a hard drive.
Yeah.
For some, it's a database structured.
Yeah.
And for some, it's just information, or we call them tickets. So if there's an error that is logged, that data is stored somewhere. And I mean, modern environment or companies make use of cloud storage. We've got AWS, Azure. Most of our clients make use of those online or cloud-based storage providers. So it's different places, and in some cases it's real-time data, where you make use of APIs to fetch information as it happens. And then you're able to then get that into your environment, process it, have a look at it, and understand whether it's important for the insights that you're trying to get to.
Okay. So you are using existing systems, architecture of the organization and so forth to go source that. So it's not like the movies where they go into dustbins and, try and piece something together. It's not all that.
No. So I think we have grown so much as an industry that we're at a point where most organizations understand the importance of data. In some cases, it's in a spreadsheet, and that could also be valuable, you know. So companies have evolved to a point where they understand that every interaction is a data point. So if I sell you something, that is a data point. I need to be able to find a way to store it, and later on in life, be able to get some insights from you as a customer. What kind of a client are you? What do you like? Understand your trends. And I think we've seen it also with a lot of social media pages, where you'll get an influx of ads based on what you've searched on Google. That's also one way that companies are collecting data to understand you as a client, and also be able to serve you better, because we can look at it and think, but they're stealing my data, they're using it for... In some cases, they are helping you buy better. It's just that we still need to find a way to strike the balance between an influx of ads, and also being able to solve problems that you have that you may not be aware of at that time.
Yes. And to get to what you're doing now, career-wise, what were your stepping stones? From qualification as you entered the world of work. Typically, which roles you had to step in to be able to be a lead now, right? Within this field.
I always look at this field as a field of problem solvers. So if you really look at everyone who's part of this field, you'll understand that there is a level of the desire to want to solve a problem. So I started off as a student in electrical engineering. Even that was an interesting story, because I got to UJ, applied for a diploma in chemical engineering. I got there and my dad said, if you go for electrical engineering, my company is going to sponsor you. And that means I won't have to pay for your fees. And at the time, I went to varsity at the same time as my sister. I was a year older than me. So we probably most of the time in the same grade until matric. So I mean, to me, it made sense. I was only 16 years old at the time. And I was like, okay, is this really what I want to do? But it was still engineering. So I thought, oh, okay. Since it's going to make the load lighter for you guys, let me just get into it.
Yeah.
So I started off as an electrical engineer.
Okay.
Right then, I made a decision, okay, I'm going to register and I'll study electrical engineering.
Yeah.
Then I got my diploma, went on and I got my degree. I worked across multiple industries as a systems engineer, commissioning engineer. Yeah. And around 2018, I felt there has to be more, because as a problem solver, you feel like once you've solved something, you need to move on to the next, right? So I was in a space where I felt like I had done everything. Like I felt like I needed something bigger than what I was able to do at the time. Yeah. So I did a lot of research, looked around, and there was data science. And everyone was talking about data, and it was exciting, I felt, oh yeah, maybe I should try this out, So I did a program with Microsoft. It's a professional program in data science. Mm-hmm. I did it, and while doing it, I already was checking at work whether I could move to a place where I could get to practice what I was doing. And I was able to do that, and I started studying and also implementing what I was studying while at the workplace. And afterwards, I felt, data science is great, but I feel like I'm still an engineer, Like I like the mess.
Yes.
Because data science for me is more like front end, like what people get to see. Yeah. Data engineering is not so glamorous, Even when you talk to some people, they probably have heard of a data scientist and have never heard what a data engineer does. So I felt, okay, I really want to work with the mess. I really want to.
Yeah, that's where the real mining happens, right?
Exactly. That's where you really get to understand the business, So hence the switch. So I switched over to the engineering. I felt like it really spoke to the kind of person that I am, the character that I have. Data science is great. Maybe I'll be a data scientist one day, I don't know. But right now I really enjoy dealing with the mess and being able to refine it. And since then, I've worked across multiple industries. Yes. And I think the opportunities are really massive. Like as someone who's in data engineering, I get a lot of calls. People offering opportunities. And it's a challenging field because you never get to a point where you have mastered it. Each industry comes with its own sets of tools and learnings and insights and business problems, like real problems that we get to be a part of solving. And that's really how I got into this space. And I feel like it really resonates with the kind of person that I am. I enjoy solving problems. And I've been challenged a lot in the field, and I enjoy the challenge. I read a lot of books, technical books, non-technical, just to understand the problem better, because it's one thing to be able to deliver. You also need to deliver like high quality work, because whatever I do, say you are in healthcare, whatever you do in healthcare has the potential to affect so many lives. So you need to be meticulous in the way that you approach these problems. Like it's not just I'm going to do it and get it done with. You need to understand what it means. And when you say to a client, this is what I found, be confident that what you've come up with is the best that you can do with what you have and the tool sets that you have. So so that's my story. And
so Dad's 11th hour business plan has worked.
Yeah.
I mean, you're quite right. I think whether we speak about, data, whether it's the new oil, the new gold, right? Whether it's the engineering part of it or the data scientist part of it and everybody else in that value chain. Ultimately, it's about storytelling and problem solving, right? And you're spot on to say your career equity quadruples, right, automatically in this sense, because those that have access to the data can do something about it, problem solve they become they get in demand in that sense. You speak passionately about problem solving. Without perhaps divulging, some of the confidential parts of it, of what you're working with, which industry and so forth. Which problem has meant so far, kind of most gratifying? Typically, if you could paint that case study and what was it solving for, right? And what is it about it that at the end of it you said, okay, that was worth it?
Sure, where do I start? Sure, they've all been special because I guess they've been able to respond to some of the questions that business have had. I think it has to be healthcare, being able to be part of a team that enabled some organizations and, big names be able to invest in healthcare, make decisions around which areas to invest in. I'm sorry, I really cannot go deeper than that. But healthcare really resonates with me because, like I said, I grew up in a very rural village, and in some cases you see the effects or the impact of the lack of inclusion and some areas where decisions are made without getting like a huge group of people involved. So being part of something that where I really feel like I am a representative of millions or billions of people who don't have access to primary healthcare, and being able to be a part of that for me has been really rewarding because I get to say, no, but don't you think this is going to introduce bias? Because I know what it's like, when we talk about issues of ethics, like, are you sure we've got enough data to be able to make this decision? So it's being able to be part of that and interrogate and see whether we've got enough to make a decision, or we should just step back a bit and allow ourselves to gather enough to be able to say, this is the way that we should go. So I think being positioned, well positioned to a point where I'm able to be representative of a lot of people who don't have access to.
So through what you do, you actually give voice to the voiceless, right?
Yes.
That's a very good insight. And I would have never thought about it that way. So it's actually a huge responsibility in many ways, because decisions are going to be derived out of that.
Yes.
And hopefully the right decisions. Okay.
So it's I think diversity is very important. And by diversity, I don't mean this group over the other. I mean all of us getting together and being able to contribute towards coming up with the solutions is really important. Like we need to all get together and say, this is what we see, this is what our interpretation, this is what I know about this, because I think I get to be part of those who tell real stories. So in some cases, when you collect data or you want to provide insights, you'll have to interview people to understand the people on the ground. How do they experience this in this community? So us being part of those conversations, part of those teams, enable people from rural communities to also be represented in those spaces where like big decisions are made, because they're really big decisions. I mean, you can see even with our, recently we had the results, matric results come out. There's a lot of statistics and data, and that is our job. Like as data engineers, we need to make sure that when the minister says these are the numbers, we are confident that whatever she's talking about is, it's facts, you know. So it's a really big role, but I think if we all just understand how big a role it is, and also just do our best, I think some of the issues with data is sometimes it's not accurate. You can't run away from that. It's actual people who are putting this information. Sometimes it's wrong. You just work through whatever you have, and in some cases you call someone, what does this mean? Is this an error? And when you're able to rectify it. So it's a great environment, but there's also like, it's very demanding. Like you have to be actively involved in the whole process.
No, I can imagine, because your data sources, like we said earlier, they're from everywhere by the millions and billions. Granted, you are using systems, tools, and so forth to assist you, but still, it's still a lot of information flow through that needs to be disseminated.
Yes.
I mean, we've got elections coming up, right? So I don't know if you guys provide services to political parties, because all of them are skeptical about where we're going to end up. Some don't want to believe, these dipstick polling results. So I presume that in the future, data engineers, data science, individuals and so forth, you're going to come in handy.
Sure.
If not now, I presume that some of your services, suppose others, even the political fraternity, it's starting to make use of these skills.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I've read articles of where data was used to influence elections, and in a negative way. Data can be used for good and bad. So I've been intentional about being involved in initiatives that use data for good, because we can solve a lot of problems with data, and we can also cause a lot of harm with data. So there's also, I think, a big part of the teachings you get, even as you train to become one, is ethics. Like, you need to be ethical in your approach. There's a lot of things that you need to consider, like, how is this affecting the community? How is it affecting a business? How is it affecting the prospect of company XYZ hiring so many people? Algorithms have been used across industries. They use them to screen people. In some cases, it's not really the most accurate, but they were created by humans. So AI or algorithms are a representation of the society we live in. And we have the opportunity to turn things around, like be part of ensuring that we tell real stories, like raw stories, not polished, and stories that make people feel like things are going well when they're not. Like, we have a responsibility to make sure that whatever stories we tell are real and a true representation of what's happening on the ground. So yes, you're right. Political parties are probably using it. I'm not really in that space, so I wouldn't know. But I'm sure they are making use of data in some way to help them get to the upper hand.
To do projections, right? Future projections of what's to come. And I'm glad you mentioned the ethical piece of what you do, and what these careers entail. Because I must be honest, as I was reflecting on your background and your resume, at a point in time you were also a media data engineer. And in my head, I was trying to process this and said, "Oh, okay, this should be interesting," right? I'm sure there was some scoop, one or two, right? But as you were mining give us breaking news. As you were mining the data that you came across, but it was talking to the ethics of it, right?
Yes.
To say you must come across a lot of things. And I would imagine that where this data is stored, the users perhaps have forgotten about all of this because you're going back in time as well, right? And it's a continuous process of discovery, and perhaps even discovering that maybe was not supposed to be before your eyes, right? So that must make your job very interesting.
Well, it is, but I think my approach really when I look at the data is, what is the problem? What am I trying to solve? Because you're right, like we get like very personal information.
So you could sell a lot of goes.
Yeah, but that's not ethical.
No, I agree with you.
So it's really, there's a lot of ethics work that comes into play. Like, what am I am I still solving a problem, or am I now introducing another factor, which is the breach of someone's privacy? So it's I don't know. I think for me, I've never really struggled with that, because for me, it has always been about what can we get from this, and I'm very cautious to not include information that we don't need. So it's only information strictly for the problem we have, and relevant to how I think we can solve the problem. So, and it's not just a one-man show. Like, you work with a team. We all hold each other accountable. We have meetings where we talk about what we're finding, and we ask questions, so you don't want to be in a position where you are compromising like a group of individuals, or like a certain individual, because I don't know why you'd want to do that, really. But so we've got a team of people who hold us accountable.
Absolutely. I mean, on a serious note, it's I guess the challenge with typically what we call new work careers is that the governance is playing the catch up, right?
Yes.
And therein lies the fault line. But to your point, it's about ethics all the way. And quite frankly, every role has that. Whether you were the financial, manager, there's the ethical way of doing it, and there's the unethical way of doing it. If you're a medical practitioner, there's the ethical way of doing it or unethical. So it's not unique in that sense. What you need is men and women that are in good standing, that subscribe to the greater good, right? Ultimately, that becomes your barometer.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's really it. You just need to be clear on the bigger picture, which is, for me, solving a specific problem that can be solved with data, because we're living in a very interesting world.
If you, with what you know now, because you've obviously have a few years working now, if you had to advise, if you had to go back in time, right, and look at another Nomcebo, right, and say, how to do what you do now, would you go about it differently? What are those lessons learned along the way? If you shared with others, how would you relive that and do it differently?
Obviously, there are some things that I would have done differently, but I believe that everything is aligned. Like, nothing happens by chance. So for someone who's young and they'd like to one day be a data engineer, I'd say, first of all, you need to get your mathematics and science. That's why it was not so hard for me to transition, because I already had the mathematical background and the science background, and also a procedural way of problem solving, because the data space may be slightly different, but most of there are overlaps between the science of computers and engineering, because it's all a process. Like, you go through first step, next step, until you get to the final solution. So for someone who wants to get into the field, I'd say focus on your math and science, and just be inquisitive. Like, always ask, like, why is this happening? I think that's how you get to the crux of the problem. You just need to keep asking the right questions. Why is this happening? Why is this looking like that? And you never stop. I also, on the side, I do mentor people who want to get into the field. My younger sister is a qualified pharmacist, and she's like, I like it, but I feel like there has to be more. And she found herself in a space where I was in, like 5-6 years ago. And she thinks, I really want to do something that's bigger than what I am doing right now. And she started with her journey as well of transitioning into the space. She's doing a master's in data science with the University of London, and currently works as a clinical analyst, which is very close to the data space. So it just starts with the desire. Can I do more than what I'm exposed to right now? Yes, sure you can. And for someone who's young and they're still starting out, they don't know what to do. Anything engineering, anything science, anything in technology, anything in mathematics can prepare you for a role in data engineering or data science. There's a lot of great organizations that provide training for people who would like to get into the field because there is a demand. So if you just focus on getting the basics, which is your science and mathematics, or technology, then you'll be in a very good position to be able to be a member of this data space. It's not like a secret society. Anyone can be a member. And there are also anyone, there's data science, there's data engineering, a whole lot of other roles, product management.
And I'm glad you're mentioning the secret society, right? Because the world at large is not a local issue. Is as if, here these special things are so difficult to get. What everybody's forgetting, to your point, is that, hang on a second, if you have the background of engineering, of science, of statistics, of maths, actuarial, all those traditional, inverted commas, right, careers we're used to, those are foundations to the newer careers, right? These are building blocks. So it's not like you are going to start, if you want to go AI, robotics, all of that, no, you just have to study just this. No. It's building blocks of multiple things.
Exactly.
You bring them together to make sense and then build new future careers on top of that.
Yes, and also just to correct that for what I just said, there are multiple roles within the data space. And you can be in humanities and be a data scientist. You can be a psychologist and be a data scientist in psychology. So there are no limits. In the arts, we have a need for data scientists. So it's really not a limiting field. Whatever field you're in, if you've got the desire to want to branch out and understand how you could make use of data to solve problems in the field that you're in, there's a lot of help there. The community is getting bigger. I think also when I started, I just started following people who were doing the same stuff, like on Instagram, on LinkedIn, just to reach out and find out how they're able to do it. Just have those conversations and attend conferences and online presentations and be part of boot camps. Just avail yourself, because there are people who are really, really wanting and hoping to help you out on this journey that you want to go on. You just need to look out for opportunities and avail yourself for those opportunities and dedicate time, because if you're going to start learning something new as someone who has a full-time job, it's difficult, it's not easy. You need to put in the hours, you need to reach out to people, have a community of people that you can reach out to. I have a really great community and I'm grateful for that, because I've had people that I'd just text and be like, oh, this is what's happening. And they share their stories. And as they share their stories, then you realize that your problem is not unique. Like if you're struggling with something, it's really not unique. Someone has gone through it before, and someone has like some guidelines or just like some help that they can provide you with to help you, get to your solution. So it's just make yourself available and reach out to people who are in the same space and start the conversation. Just find out, what do I need to learn? It's step by step. Get one set of skills. Now that you've mastered, go on and get more skills. It's you're not limited to just this or that. There's a lot that you can learn in this space. So just reach out to the people whom you'd like to, get insights from and assistance from.
No, absolutely. So let's try and get some more insights and problem solving. I just want to test your data sources. Sunday World or Sunday Sun?
Sunday World.
Sunday World.
Yeah.
Okay. Chill with MacG or the Gareth Cliff Show?
It's crazy because I don't listen to any of those. But yeah, maybe
It can be on the
Gareth
fence.
Cliff. Gareth Cliff.
Gareth Cliff.
Yes.
The River or the Queen?
The River?
These are all gossip, you know that, right?
I know. I know, but I do appreciate a very good movie. I watch series sometimes. I love stories about love. You know, I'm a human being. Like I love stuff. Like I love fashion, sometimes makeup, you know, small things. So I do get time to just put things down, put my laptop down and just relax and not think about data stuff. So I have watched The River and
I
The
was
Queen
going to
at some
ask
point.
that, you know, to say, as you do the fun stuff, right? The rom-coms, you know, the fashion and that. Hopefully you're not doing any data engineering there, right?
No,
Oh,
it's just for fun.
You're taking it at face value for what it is.
Exactly. I'll watch an action movie for 2 hours and I'll just be the happiest afterwards, you know. So I do get a chance to just do things outside. I mean, I've got kids. I've got 2 girls and I spend time with them as well. We have some fun activities that we do. So I have a life. I have my husband. I have sisters. You know, I'm a human being. I'm not a robot. Even though I help build them sometimes. So
I hope they know that you have lots of data sources.
I think what the space I'm in sometimes makes me feel like I can't put things out there, you know, especially with the kids. Like sometimes I feel like would they want to be there? They're young. Right now they don't get to make the decision.
Correct.
I'm an adult, I can make decisions. So it's tough because I can't just do things. I'm always aware of the security aspect of whatever I put out there. So but I'm human.
No, absolutely. It's been good having you.
Thank you.
Daddy now knows that his proposition has worked out. But Nomcebo Ngwamba, it's been good having you and all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.